Hey guys, so what you're going to see is a little review of what we did today in class. And if you are really paying attention, this should all sound super duper familiar because I'm going over the same exact thing, just kind of in case you missed anything or you need a refresher on it. So, of this unit, we went over powers and exponents. And when we talked about powers and exponents, we were referring to things that look like this, and you can see it's 2 to the 4th power, 2 being the base and 4 being the exponent. Whenever things are asked for you to write in exponential form, you would write it looking like this. When you're asked to write it in factor form, this is what it would look like, because 2 to the 4th power actually represents 2 times 2 times 2 times 2. So if you're ever given this version and the factor version, you're trying to figure out how to make it into exponential, you look at what's being multiplied, which it's 2 here, and that becomes the base. And then you count how many times was the 2 used, and here it's been used 2, 3, 4 times, and so that becomes your 4, and that's your exponential version. So you have 2 to the 4th, and if I asked you to figure it out, you would have to do 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, which hopefully we know is 16. So that's powers and exponents. Order of operations, we had to remember that we had to follow a specific order in order to get to the correct answer. We had parentheses, exponents, multiply and divide, add and subtract. What we had to remember is when it came to multiplication and division, we had to do them in the order they came in from left to right. You're not going to do all of the multiplication before the division unless all of the multiplications closest to the left. So you go left to right solving them. And the same goes for addition and subtraction. Here's a problem we're going to do. 4 plus the quantity of 16 divided by 2 minus 3 times 2 plus 3 squared. So in the order of operations, the first thing that comes up is parentheses. So that's indeed what we're going to do first. 16 divided by 2 is 8. So then I write 8 instead of the parentheses. And then I write everything before the parentheses and everything after the parentheses to show my new problem. Now that I've done the parentheses here, I've done the parentheses, so I can go ahead and I can check it off. I'm going to do exponents. Well, the exponent that's there is 3 squared. 3 squared, if we remember back to the last slide, is 3 times 3, which is 9. So I write my answer as 9. Okay. Once I get that my answer is 9, I can then move on and I can cross off that the exponents can be crossed off. So then the next thing it says that I'm supposed to do is multiply and divide left to right. So the first thing I come across is my multiplication. 3 times 2. 3 times 2 is 6. And so we would write 6, and then everything that came before the 3 times 2 and everything that came after the 3 times 2. There's no more multiplication and division, so I can say I'm done with that. And then there's addition and subtraction. I am going to go left to right. 4 plus 8 is 12. 12 minus 6 is 6. And then 6 plus 9 is 15. And 15 becomes my answer. Anytime you're given any type of math problem, you always have to look at the order of operations in order to solve it. So we want to keep that in mind, and I highly suggest anytime you're doing an order of operation problem, you write PEMDAS on the side and you check them off as you do that particular step. Next, we've talked about variables and expressions. Here we have x plus yz when x is 5.5, y is 3, and z is 4. Looking at this, it may look a little confusing because there's a lot of letters, but we're going to simplify it as much as we possibly can. First thing we need to remember is yz. Yz is next to each other. When they're next to each other, that means we are going to end up multiplying. So when I go to plug in all of the numbers instead of the letters, I know that between the y and the z should be a multiplication problem. So the first thing I do is I plug it in and I get 5.5 plus 3 times 4. After I've done that, I should be looking at this and I should remember I have to do things in the order of operations. I cannot add before I multiply. I have to multiply first. So we're going to do 3 times 4 first because we need to follow the order of operations. So I got 12. Now I need to do 5.5 times 12. Now don't freak out. I know it's a fraction, but not a big deal. We're adding. So that means we can actually just add our whole numbers, which is 5 plus 12. And we know that's 17. And then we add a half. Well, 17 plus a half is 17.5. And you've gotten your answer. You went from all letters to plugging it in to then solving it to get our answer. Great job. Next, we did translating words to expressions. If you don't have the sheet that I gave you to help you out with the different letters, the different words that mean different things, it is up on Schoology and you can go ahead and grab that. But when we go ahead and we look at this, we try and pick it apart, just like you used to do with your LA homework at one point. So I'm going to look at 23, and it says 23 less than James. How can I write this as an expression? Well, 23 is going to be 23. I can't change 23. Less, I can change. Less means an operation, a math operation. Less actually means subtraction. So we're going to remember that that means to subtract. Than is a key word that we learned this year, and I want you to remember it and don't forget about it. Than means to turn around. Remember? Turn around. So we're going to turn it around. Oh no, I gave you the answer. Well, you have the answer currently. And it's not letting me click this for some reason. So we're just going to try and do something real quick. And now let's see if there it is. Than, that's my turnaround word. And then James is my unknown, which is going to be my variable. And we are going to write it as J. And so that turnaround word, so it says 23 minus turnaround J. That turnaround means that anything that came after the J or after the subtraction sign is going to go before. And anything before the subtraction sign is going to go after. We're going to turn it around. So our answer is actually J minus 23. The product of 8 and a number, we have to remember that product means to multiply. And so I have the product of 8. 8's not going to change. And a number, well, a number is just a variable. So we're going to write n. So it says multiply 8 and n. Well, there you go. We know how to write that. You just have to write them next to each other, 8n. And you have your answer. 1/2 was one of those crazy ones that sometimes when we see 1/2, we start to freak out because it's fractions. But we know fractions. We use fractions in our everyday life. When I ask you to write, hey, what's half of that? You know that you're actually taking whatever we're talking about, n, a number, and I say, what's half of that? You always divide by 2. You always know what to do when it's asked of you, but when we write it down, sometimes we forget. So just remember that when it says a half, stay calm. You know what to do. Properties was one of the things that we did just before distribution. And properties, the 3 we talked about were commutative property, associative property, and identity property. Commutative property was where you could take anything, whether it's addition and subtraction, you could switch them around. Associative was when you move the parentheses, and identity was when you either multiplied by 1 or added 0. My video is going to cut off for a second, but if you need to review distribution or simplifying terms, go back to the video from yesterday to give you some extra help. Have a good day.